Okie dokie. I would advise that we should get started anyway. So if you guys would join or stand and join me, I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so this is the perfect time for public comment. Mary was interested in submitting some comment.
Yes. I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
So Mary, I don't know if you've been listening in. We're still short a quorum, so we only have 2 council members. And so we are still prepared to listen to your comments, however. Here comes
Do you want to hear them now or do you want to wait?
Well, actually, Robert apparently is just pulling up. So we were trying to get some of the agenda moving along before we got our quorum. But if you want to wait for Robert, he's going to be here in about 30 seconds if he ever exits his car.
Oh, he's out.
Okay.
Okay.
See how it's stepping.
A very bright shirt. So. Robert.
Wow, no kidding.
I'm coaching soccer, man. I just got back to the house from practice. All right. There we go.
All right.
Count 3.
So we basically started right into public comment.
Oh, excellent. I apologize.
Thank you.
Mary?
I'm going to pull up the agenda on my phone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is Mary Rapar from Home Valley. I sent you all an email. Hopefully everybody got it. It is an invitation to our Grange program, Stevenson Grange number 121's program on sustainability on September 28th. You will have to pre-register through the library, but who we have is Kyle Dissner. He is a Portland planner, and he will be speaking, giving us an overview of the Doughnut economic theory. This he is the Climate Action Program Coordinator for the City of Portland Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, a mouthful. And he basically worked with Kate Rawert, who wrote the 2017 book, Doughnut Economics, 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. And what this, at its most basic, Doughnut economics is a way of describing an economic system that extends beyond strictly financial measures to include environmental sustainability and healthy, thriving communities. And Portland has used some aspects of the Doughnut theory, but not all of them, primarily due to COVID. So I hope you all put that on your calendar. I've invited all the Gorge planners from the Gorge Commission and all the counties in the NSA. And I think this will be an interesting overview. What it basically also means is that you have to live within your resources and what you can afford. It might be a good overview because you are being asked to extend water beyond your city limits. And you have to ask yourself the question, do we have the resources to do it? And this is what this Doughnut economic theory, and it's spelled D-O-U-G-H, not D-O-N, because the writer or the author, Kate Rawert, is English. She's proposing an economy that does not destroy its ecological functions. And that is sometimes very hard for humans to grasp and to want to do. So I would like to invite you all to that. Like say, you will have to pre-register on the library events calendar. The other thing I'd like to invite you to is something for which you can pre-plan on November 13th. the Grange is also having a plant and seed and bulb swap outside by the courthouse annex under tents. We might have some cider and hot coffee for those who are chilled. And we want to share the bounty from our gardens and with our community. So if you have anything growing and you want to save seeds and plants, just come on by and on the 13th, from November 13th, from 10 to 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Would anybody else like a chance to address the council? We will circle back after this segment and get back in order again. Okay, so Amy has requested an excused absence, but then we also have an unexcused absence. So we'll vote or entertain a motion to excuse Amy.
Make motion to excuse Amy Weisfeld for her request.
Second. All right, any other discussion or any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Let's see here. Very few changes to the agenda since it was published. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we do have a public hearing on the agenda. I would like to open, we have time on here, open the public hearing at 6:15. And who is our, Liana is our staff reporter.
So this moratorium is part of our administrative order that we received back in 2017. It's part of our way to ensure that we don't exceed our capacity at our plant and have any effluent violations. We've been moving along at a very good pace on our plan that we have to do our plant upgrades. We are going out, we went out to bid for the equipment for items that have a very long lead time. And those bids will be back in October. And once that gets going, we expect to go out to bid for the construction phase of the project between November and January. And based on that outcome, the end result is we anticipate having the plant being fully online by the spring or summer of next year, and everything being wrapped up by the end of 2023. Sorry, not next year, a year and a half for full construction. But that being,
Good luck with that.
well, that's why we're ordering some parts ahead of time.
And then would we lift the moratorium at that point?
Right, so there is a point in time where we would be comfortable lifting the moratorium throughout the construction phase, but now is not that time. We can reevaluate it next year. So this is another year-long extension of the moratorium. And it's on commercial connections that exceed residential capacity. If they make improvements or if they construct it to where they can treat everything on site, where they're only discharging residential capacity, then it's allowed. It just allows, it just creates more infrastructure on their end. So that's the same. So the moratorium is the same as it has been from that standpoint. It's just extending it 1 year. And again, we'll review it next year about this time. We will probably have to extend it for one more time, but not for another full year. If we do, the ordinance might state 1 full year, but we can lift it at any time. The consequence, if we don't have this moratorium in place, and if commercial connections come on and we start violating our permit, is that the state can come in and put a moratorium on us. And they would wait 1 year until after the plan is online to verify that the engineer's calculations were correct before they lift it. So it would extend it past the time that the city would lift it otherwise. So it behooves us to do it ourselves.
But our prior moratorium though had restricted all commercial tie-ins.
No, the prior moratorium is the same. So it's commercial moratoriums that are,
That don't
that
exceed.
exceed residential strength.
How's that defined?
300 milligrams per liter BOD. BOD, 5-day BOD, to be specific.
Okay, so before we go too far into the weeds on that aspect, I'd like to solicit some comments from the public. Does anybody here in person or online like to make a comment? Good. Make sure to state your name and where you're from.
Rick Manning. I'm 3 blocks away. I do want a little bit more information. So it's 300. And is there a certain volume of that? Is that like 500 gallons? So really, as long as that effluent comes out of 300 or less, they can have whatever volume they want.
It's the strength that we have an issue with. It's the strength that impacts the plant, and that's what we're, that is in essence, the main cause of the administrative order that we're under.
So there could be a lot of businesses who could come into the town that could meet that. So, is that something where I'm just afraid that they just come in and say, oh, there's a moratorium, and then so no new business ideas come in. So is there some way that sort of idea that, if you can keep it down to the residential 300 or less, then you can come in here and go ahead and bring a business in? Is that somehow getting out to the public?
When people call and we mention it to them, we do let them know that there are ways that they can bring it down if they want to bring in a type of business. As far as other marketing, we're not doing any specific marketing, relaying that data.
Are you getting any calls that are asking that question?
We do.
You do. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that whatever business we can get in, we get in.
I think we share the sentiment.
But it only affects new buildings though, right? If it's
Correct,
an existing
yeah.
structure and you're currently tied in, it doesn't affect you, just like the hotel or now Rock Creek Tavern.
Yep.
Yeah, just the idea that if somehow, if somebody comes in and just says, oh, there's a moratorium, so they just move on
Right.
to the next town, if there's something in that says, there's an asterisk or something that goes in so they can read further or fit the idea that we're not saying no to all businesses.
Well, and as you can see, we've got a new business coming into a building that's been shut down for a while because they had a connection. They didn't just assume that there was no way for them to get in. There was previous connection. So, yeah, their businesses are still
Yeah, just getting that out to the public that I have some concern about.
Very good. Any other comments? All right, I'd like to close the public hearing at 6:22. Any other additional council or staff discussion?
We haven't had any tags this year though, right? We've gotten through, we had one.
We had one, but so did most of the state.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we haven't had any violations, and actually, I don't even believe that was related to BOD. It was just volume.
Right.
Um,
I mean, again, shout out to Carl, who's done a great job.
and the significant industrial users have been doing a great job as well.
Okay, any other comments? Don't forget that there's two parts to this. There's the resolution and then the ordinance.
I move to approve resolution 2021-380 adopting the findings of fact related to the moratorium extension on commercial connections.
Second.
All right, the first and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That is approved, thank you. And
Dave, you're on a roll.
Okay, I'll move to approve ordinance 2020-1165 extending the wastewater moratorium on commercial connections with discharge above residential strength.
Short typo there, right? 2021.
2021.
Oh, excuse me, yes, 2020.
It's tough.
That's-
Second.
Okay, first and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
You,
no, it's 2020. And the agenda, it's got 20.
I know, on the agenda it has 2020.
No, but it says 1141 on the actual ordinance as opposed to 1165. I just want to make sure we got, if I go to page 38.
Well, it says 1174, doesn't it?
Yeah. Just making sure we got the
It
right.
should be 1174,
Okay.
2021, 1174.
Motion to
And I would
modify the
amend
previous.
I would amend my motion accordingly.
There you go. Thank you.
I was in bold, I was telling myself to change that number.
do we need another vote?
Yeah, technically you do.
Okay.
Because the numbers change,
All right.
so.
Dave, if you want to go again, we're gonna have to,
Okay.
with the proper
Uh,
ordinance number.
okay, I move to approve ordinance 2021-1174 wastewater moratorium renewal.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So is the noise ordinance first reading a public hearing as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, open the public hearing at 6:25. Staff report.
So as stated at the last council meeting, we received some noise complaints, and due to the way that our current ordinance is structured, it's very difficult for enforcement. And so the request was for direction on how to move forward with the ordinance. This ordinance closely follows Skamania County's noise ordinance, and it also removes the Russell Crossing information, or Russell Crossing prohibition for the train horns, which is not enforceable really anyway. And then council did talk about in compression braking, engine braking. If council wants to put that in there, it would go in a different section to address it. It would go under more or less traffic control versus the noise ordinance. But there's also an email in there from the sheriff with regards to the noise ordinance. There is an RCW which prohibits unmuffled compression brakes. And there would be a safety concern considering that Stevenson's at the bottom of a hill. And so those would be considerations if you still wanted to move forward with addressing engine braking.
Did you have a chance to talk with Sheriff Brown?
Um,
I mean, he says he's got a concern about prohibition of all compression braking.
So.
He's got a memo in there.
Yeah,
So is that for the,
that was it for my staff report.
okay, so we'll hold off on council discussion, but I would like to offer an opportunity for the public to address the council. Would anybody like to address the council on this matter? And go ahead, Ann.
Hello, I would just like to say that I find it unfortunate. Oh, hello.
Do the part,
Yes.
who you are, where you're from.
Oh, sorry. Ann Looters. I live in Skamania County and I own property in Stevenson.
Thank you.
I find it unfortunate that City Council has received presumably enough complaints to warrant a second look at the noise ordinance. I am always hopeful that most of these things can be addressed by having a friendly conversation with your neighbor, and or if that doesn't turn out, that you can just make more noise than them and perhaps they will see the value in being cooperative. Nonetheless, clearly you are addressing it, and I would only hope that you leave the Jake brakes out of it, because I absolutely love the sound of them. I recognize the safety component that they also bring in. As Liana pointed out, Stevenson is at the bottom of a hill. We are a timber community. My suspicion is that the Jake brakes people are hearing are related to log trucks, and it is wonderful. So I would encourage council to ignore the Jake brake issue and do what you must, I suppose, with the rest of the ordinance. Thank you.
Mary. Go ahead, Mary. So,
Yeah.
did we ever mute it, or is she?
No, she's unmuted.
Okay.
Mary, are you
Are you
muted on
Mary?
your end?
She's muted.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I just muted you again. Sorry. Okay.
That's
There
okay.
we go.
All right. I know. Thank you, Mary Rapar. Even though I don't live in Stevenson, I just want to remark about the compression brakes. I do believe that there are various signs around the entire county, not just in Stevenson, saying that compression brakes are prohibited. Now, there's signs along the roadways, so I am assuming they're based on more than wishful thinking, and that might be that might be the RCW. I don't know. And although Anne loves those Jake brakes and compressions, I don't think somebody put those signs up just because they felt like it. So that might be something to just find out why those signs are all over the county in various parts of the county, not just in Stevenson. And you know, it's all well and good to say, oh yes, you need to have a discussion with your neighbors. Well, in today's climate, a discussion sometimes can lead to fisticuffs and people pulling guns out. So an ordinance is a nice thing to have in the back pocket when discussion, well, let me rephrase that. Rational discussion cannot take place between neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comments? There we go. Go ahead, Rondi, make sure to tell us who you are and where you live.
Hi, it's Rondi Khan. I live here in Stevenson, and just kind of piggybacking off of what Mary just said, I am one of those people who have had to make noise complaints. We have a neighbor, I won't name names because it's not my job to out people in a public forum, but he has made it honestly a living hell to live here on our road that we live on. He will crank up his stereo outside of his residence to levels to where we can't hear our own TVs in our houses with the window shut and the door shut. And then he will leave his house for several hours at a time. So, I mean, one of my questions would be, you know, how would we handle that kind of situation where this person just likes to leave his music on when he's not even home or not outside listening to it? And it's not even always music. Sometimes it's, you know, conservative talk radio, and it's just, it's mind boggling. And as far as with Anne, I have lived by this person for over 11 years. I've tried many, many times to have civil discussions. And the last time I tried to have a civil discussion with this person, he cussed me out. So I'm not trying that route again. So that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rondi. Any other public comments? Saw the hand up go for a second. Hope, did you want to chime in?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay, sorry guys. I would like to also agree with Mary Repar and totally back up Rondi. I also live next to another person who through the years that I have lived here and have tried to talk to very kindly and nicely at times. The noise, I did send a video to Leanna to demonstrate how loud it is. It is continuous. No matter what we do or say, if we say, please turn it down, this person just turns it up. Okay, it's that kind of thing. So we do need to have some kind of an ordinance with a little bit of teeth in it so that at least this will calm him down some, you know, and other people too, you know, to quiet it down. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Hope. Hand up, Johanna.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't catch Hope's name until I clicked back on the screen, so that was all I needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I'd like to close the public hearing at 6:35. There have been additional comments. Deputies have been asked to respond to noise complaints, and there's not much they can do with the way we have our ordinance currently. So it's been reported that even the deputies are saying, give us a little something to work with for these complaints when they come in.
And just as a heads up, so this is the first reading. There will be a second reading. And if council adopts it, it will then have to go to the Department of Ecology for their approval as well, because it's outside of the WAC code. Yeah.
All right, any other comments, questions, you guys? Any thoughts on the brakes?
Yeah. Having worked around trucks from the law enforcement side, I have no problem with a muffled compression brake. It's the unmuffled. And I believe that a lot of the signs that Mary is referring to is the unmuffled compression brakes, where those are not allowed. And that's what I would like to see, is an unmuffled. Even though I can hear muffled compression brakes coming down crank guns and up above up here, that's still, I think we have to take a look at the economics that we're in and be able to come to a happy medium on it. The other concern I have is Rondi and Hope and the problems that they're having with their neighbors and not making sure that law enforcement is totally aware of what's going on, and those neighbors are totally aware that law enforcement knows what's going on. I would really encourage them every time it happens to make a recording of it and to make a complaint with the sheriff's office on it. Because the more complaints that are made about a particular individual raises the bar on how complaints are handled. And I would agree also with Sheriff Brown's take on the compression brakes as well. I think there's a big safety issue if you totally eliminate the ability of a truck driver to use his compression brakes.
I feel like that's a fair difference, muffled and unmuffled. To the untrained ear, though, is that something easy to just go, that's not the right one.
Correct. But you can take a look at the truck and you can tell if it's muffled or unmuffled.
Does speed have anything to do with that?
Pardon?
Does speed have anything to do?
Well, speed
with
is
your
going,
volume?
speed is going to, the higher the RPM,
Mhm.
the louder it will be.
Right.
Yes.
So what I find living on Kanaka Creek is, I mean, my estimation is that many of them are speeding as well as, and also trying to slow or speeding down the hill and then applying those brakes, probably not soon enough before the stop sign.
Well, I would offer that a 40-mile-an-hour compression brake
Mhm,
is loud.
mhm.
It's
Yeah.
loud. And the speed limit coming down is 40 to start with. Then it drops down to 35. And so you're going 35 all the way down, almost all the way down here to the
The
bottom.
grabber, yeah, but
And so you're gonna hear that, but at the same time, for them to ride their brakes that entire distance
Mhm.
is not safe.
so I'm at the 25-mile-per-hour section of the road of Kanaka Creek.
Okay.
It's right here in this first block.
And if we have speeding issues,
Mhm.
we need to make sure that the sheriff knows that,
Yeah,
because we've got a contract with him.
And they've, put us there,
Yep.
one of the challenges is, real estate for that sign.
Right.
And so they, I believe, they put one in,
and that empty
yeah.
driveway,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but that's now sold.
So, right, yeah.
So I don't know that they'll be able to do that again in the future. And it is, you're right. And we did talk to Deputy Bond
Mhm.
about this.
I think having an open conversation with the sheriff's office, anytime those type of situations come up,
Mhm,
they need to know about it,
mhm.
because they can adjust patrol schedules and coverages
Mhm.
depending upon where the issues are in the county.
Got it.
And so we need to make sure we communicate those
Mhm.
challenges to them.
Yeah, it wasn't clear to me what Deputy Bond said would be done with it. I don't know if there was, if the sign was posted for maybe a week to 2 weeks. But I don't know what the follow-up is to that.
Are you talking about the trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, the LED trailer. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
so, okay.
Oops. Okay, any other comments?
If I may, I had a comment and I just asked council if we can look at whether or not we can include a private right of action under the enforcement authority provisions. It comes up today, I was actually in court, a citizen in the county had brought a claim under the jump cars provisions of the County Act, and there is no civil right of enforcement for that. And I got to point that out to the judge and it got dismissed. So while those parties may have had an issue, it seems that if we're going to put any teeth in this, why do we always have to go to the sheriff? Give the citizens an opportunity to go to take it to district court,
Yep.
if possible.
Well, yeah, you couldn't do an injunction.
No, they just asked for whatever. I mean, they got to prove their case, but we gave them a prima facie burden to prove in district court. And if the district court judge rules as such, then, you know, they could at least impose whatever statutory fine that we can impose in the statute.
There have been some cases in Skamania County, in the county,
Mm-hmm.
where two neighbors have been at odds with one another and noise and everything, and the judge finally brought them both in and said, the next time this happens, if either one of you complain, people are going to jail.
Was it, I mean, the harassment statutes, you know, it doesn't have enough teeth in it because you have to fear imminent bodily harm in order to get a harassment.
It wasn't a harassment issue, but
Right.
yeah.
So in this case, if they want to say, well, I'm not getting any help, sheriff's been out or sheriff's talked to everybody as well, and they're still having the same problem. I'd like to know if procedurally we can include a private right of action in the statute. It would allow then our citizens to, you know.
Basically take their neighbor to court if they want to.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So
That doesn't currently exist?
Not in this statute.
A nuisance potentially, but it's not directly covering noise.
Interesting.
The law enforcement here is the sheriff's, Skamania County Sheriff, so they have the only enforcement rights.
So what is your opinion on that?
But I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I
all.
have to look into that.
We just briefly
That's
chatted.
unusual. I've never seen it in a noise ordinance, honestly. But it's not to say it's not possible. I mean, we have a lot of home rule authority. It's possible we could do that, but
I would encourage you to take a look at it. Let us know on the second reading.
That does have some interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yes, it's always great, because somebody goes, hey, Scott, my neighbor, his yard's out of control. I fear that if something caught fire, my house would go with it. Can't the city do something? Have you put on your big boy pants and knocked on the door? Have we made that first step yet?
Right.
So, yes, but at some point, if you've made every effort, and I know at least one of the people that we're talking about here, being reasonable is not part of the equation.
Right.
So unfortunately, it does come down to that, and having a tool that the citizen and the sheriff has available to them. And maybe if this is another tool, then that would be great.
Yeah.
I'll look at it.
Any quick comment?
Yeah, I know it's outside the public comment period, but as far as the Jake Creeks, I'd like to make a little bit of a statement on that. Also, I live on Connector Creek Road, and there's a couple of factors. There's of course speed, which is mentioned, and real estate for a sign, but we could put a 25-mile-an-hour sign on the pavement surface because that is a school area nearby, and that would really be a good reminder. But the Jake Break issue is addressable, and I don't think it is a safety issue because they're supposed to be stopping when they come down Connect Creek, right there
At Cropper.
And the altitude change anywhere within the city limits down to the highway here, river level, is not so great to pose a danger. They can't use the brakes and not use the Jacobs brake. And in fact, about a year ago, I complained to the sheriff, and amazingly, they stopped using it for about a year. So obviously, it's not a safety problem because they did just fine.
Thanks.
Your name.
Yeah. I was gonna
So
say,
for the
who are
record,
you?
yes, Kurt.
Yes, Kurt Gray, Stevenson, resident.
So I just have one question. If you want to add that private right of action, do we want to have another public hearing with that included, or do we want to just leave it as this one public hearing?
Let me find out whether we can,
Okay.
for one thing. I'm a little skeptical whether we can just insert a private right of action in a local ordinance, but.
Shoot me down early.
I'm just saying I'm skeptical. I'm not saying no, but I will look into that. Maybe ask MRC if
The
they have.
answer is not no.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you have direction, we're waiting on, some
Yeah, do we
comments
want to
from
have another public hearing if that can be added, or do we want to just leave it at the one public hearing?
Transparency, right?
Yeah, I'd rather have another public hearing.
you. We still have the option to approve it.
You
Oh,
can
yeah, yeah.
adopt it
Right.
afterwards, right?
Okay, all right, we have a guest. Is
Yes.
Alan with us?
So Alan, I am unmuting you. I just, for everyone's information, the county has done a reorganization of the community development and public works. And so the building inspection department is now under community development, and Alan Peters is the director. And so Tim Elsey will no longer be in charge of that or presenting, and so Alan is taking over.
Nice.
So it's been what, a month or two?
Yeah, thank you. It's been actually a month exactly today.
There you go.
Welcome.
So yeah, since your last update, we've had some changes here at the county, and our new community development department encompasses the planning division, environmental health, and building. So I don't expect, that you'll notice any changes, really, no changes to the contract. I guess the immediate changes that now I'll be managing it for the county. But in long term, I do expect that with this change, we'll be able to continue to build up our building division staff to have 3 true FTEs working in the building department. And one thing that we recently did was we purchased an additional vehicle so that we can have 2 inspectors out at any given time. Arnold Dahl, who came on earlier this year as the assistant building official, is definitely capable of doing more inspections on his own now, as he's been in this position for several months now. As far as updates on our contract, we actually had a really good meeting last week with your staff to discuss our current processes and and room for improvement. And we're already working on refining some of those things, specifically ensuring that builders are scheduling all the inspections that are required. There are some inspections that the city is still doing, like setbacks and water hookups, that type of thing, in addition to the standard inspections that come in as part of the building process. So we're working on revising some of our forms, as well as our permit software, to make sure that folks are calling in their inspections to the correct agency, whether it be us at the county or the city. So that's something that's already in motion as a result of our meeting last week. Since our last report in June, we've seen 19 new permits for the city of Stevenson. That includes 5 new single-family residences, and then various other residential permits, including re-roofs and additions, and then 4 commercial permits we've issued. That includes, the repairs I think you guys have seen to Riverview Bank, as well as a pedestrian bridge at the lodge, and then the Sean Van Bell project on First Street. Right now, it looks like our permit timelines are 3 to 5 weeks. Some of those, we're approving on the lower end, and then, a couple obviously have taken a little bit longer, but 3 to 5 weeks. And we're hoping, again, as we kind of build up our staff, that we can continue to improve on that turnaround time. So that's all the report I had, but I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council.
Thank you for that, Alan, for the update.
Thank you, Alan.
Of course, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. You're welcome to stick around.
Very exciting. He's already gone.
No, I'm still here, but I got a toddler to put to bed soon. So,
Thank you.
all right, have a good night.
Okay, thank you too.
All right, COVID update. I haven't heard of anything substantial. It's so far, okay. Lots of discussion about mandated vaccinations. So, yeah, lots of discussion on how to proceed with that. We have not taken that step here. Or we kind of hearing from Kelly too about some funding.
She wasn't able to make it, so I pushed it to October. So.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, we haven't had any issues at City Hall.
And
So-
we don't fall under the employee count for the president's vaccination mandate.
Well, if we get to 100 employees, you let me know quick.
More problems.
Yeah, that will not sneak up on.
No, will not. Yeah.
So, yeah,
I do have one thing. I'm also part of the Skamania County Ham radio system. And I just got an email here from Kevin Widener, who's the coordinator. He says, Skamania County, we're gonna have a training this Saturday. And he said, since Skamania County has had almost 100 new COVID cases since September 1st, he's canceling the meeting. So that's just a thought.
yeah.
So the update or sewer plant?
Sort
So, I think one good piece of good news is that the weight restrictions on Bridge of the Gods has been delayed. And so today we didn't have to drive all the way to the Dalles to go to Hood River for our biosolids hauling. And so they're hoping that they will only have to do 2 haulings to Hood River instead of 4 during the time that those weight restrictions are in place. Because when those are in place, we can't haul the biosolids across the Hood River Bridge nor the Bridge of the Gods. But other than that, everything's going well. And like I said earlier, October 13th is when the bids are due for the equipment purchasing. So we're doing all we can. I think we added a piece of equipment as well to that to see, because of all the supply chain challenges, we can't throw everything on there, but we did throw in the large ticket items, and definitely items that are about 6 months out or so on a normal timeline onto that. So we'll know more mid-October how those are coming in.
Cool.
All right, second reading, Latecomer's ordinance now.
So at the last meeting, I mentioned, so part of the whole wastewater treatment project also includes extending the main line, with up Loop Road and then up Frank John's for a small section. And we wanted to do a latecomers agreement on that, and this changes our ordinance to allow us to have a latecomers agreement because the and the state statute has changed since when we adopted our original latecomers. This is, and nothing has changed since you saw it last month.
So, question then. Are people required to hook on to the sewer system once it goes up? And the reason I ask that is because my neighbor CJ, they and their son have purchased that piece of property across from Sunbees that they cleared out. And he was talking about possibility of putting in 2 septic systems and all kinds of stuff. I said, you're not gonna hook up to the sewer. And he said, well, she said it was gonna cost like $200,000 to bring the sewer all the way up past their house. I don't know what the figures are, but so my question is, if the city does do that, will they be required then to hook into the septic or to the sewer line at that time?
So if they currently have septic, the answer is no, if their septic is currently working. If their septic fails
Correct.
and they're within 300 feet, then yes, they would be required to hook on.
Yes, okay. Okay, thank you.
And what this, so the cost of the project from here to the, more or less the first driveway at Frank John's is about $300,000 roughly. And then this would allow us to portion it out and assign a cost to each parcel that I believe has
the ability to connect to it
yeah,
at some
yes,
point.
Yes, so they wouldn't be charged the full $300,000.
Correct.
But a portion thereof.
Okay.
Thoughts, Robert?
I didn't, so is there not sewer connection all the way at Frank John's right now?
No,
Not up to the city limit, not at all.
Lower Frank John's.
I understand. So you're talking down here, or you're talking above Loop?
Above Loop, there is no sewer.
Right.
it stops at the blinking light.
It does stop at the light? I did not know. All right.
And there are a couple of lots along Loop that aren't necessarily, they don't have enough room to put a septic on it.
Right,
So they would need sewer in order to be buildable.
okay.
And I do know that there's a property owner that has been on us at calling regularly, because he would like to, I don't know if he subdivide his lot or what he wants to do, but he's really anxious to get sewer up there.
Okay. I did not know that.
You interested in a motion?
I would be delighted.
Okay, I would move to approve the Latecomers Ordinance 2021-1175 as presented with any changes we discussed, which are none.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, approved. All right. So this discussion has come up because we have seen some, was it Facebook accounts? And then even,
No, it's Yelp, Google.
Google,
We can trace the
Facebook, and
Facebook
Gmail.
accounts. Yeah, you can't trace the Gmail or the Yelp review.
right, well, anyway, it's posing as someone else and then leveling some pretty serious, well, comments.
Apparently, I told Backwoods the other night, their food tastes like shoe leather. Why would I eat it? But I still gave them 4 stars. I love it. And I don't like the sheriff's office, but I like Walking Man. I love that one too. And I consider Sheriff Brown to be the equivalent of Judge Dredd. So I've been attacked on 15 of these. I've hired a forensic cybersecurity guy. Spent $1,500 and got buckets. I just ignore it. But it's they went and posted my picture and put it on there, and it's just more.
Pretty good picture, by the way.
It's my firm picture, so it's like, great. You took a 10-year-old picture on my firm website. That's awesome. Great. And then get the new one. So yeah, it's been going on for a while. I know they tagged Annie.
Annie's not a fan of
Rob
AJ.
Ferris.
I'm not a fan of
we got Todd
AJ and Carson Hardware and Red Bluff and somebody else, I can't remember. Oh, Robert, I'm not a fan of you.
Yeah, that's true. You actually posted that though on my firm website's Google review, which is
Yes.
even better. So you went and found that. Yeah, that was wild.
But I do have I have another one that was made that I think was more serious than all the others. And so I want to bring that to the council's attention. I'm going to read it. And then I wrote a statement that I would like to read too, just to have it on public record. So I received an email to my personal email address from my personal email address.
You write yourself.
Yes. And the subject line is time to say hello. And the body says, wanted to say hello as we have not had the opportunity to interact personally yet. You can keep disavowing negative community interactions. You can change your Facebook name, and in parentheses, they have my new Facebook name, but it will not make a difference. Pressure will continue and increase until your sins have been exposed and paid and you vacate from the city council. We are shielded, enraged, and dedicated. You cannot find us, but we see you always. We are legion, for we are many. And that was written on Thursday, August 19th. So.
By you.
Yeah, by you too.
To me,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. So this is my response to this and a couple of other points of communication that we have been experiencing. I shared this among my peers and the audience to bring awareness to the hate speech that is circulating in this community. This email was sent from a fake Gmail account created in my name. Since May, fake Google and Facebook accounts have also been created in my name, and other elected officials and business owners are victims too. The intent is to cause conflict between us and our community. What it has also done is cast a poor light on the reputation and livelihood of some of our local business owners. Tourists planning a visit to Stevenson this summer likely read these negative Google reviews and may have decided to not support these businesses. Every single one of us sits here at this table in full view of our neighbors, and we express our opinions with considerable risk of disappointing one or many. And we hold ourselves accountable to this responsibility by showing up every month of our 4-year term or more and do it again and again. It is absolutely impossible to please every resident when making decisions, and that is the difficulty of this position. It is never easy. It is from this angle that I take offense when someone doesn't have the courage to put his name to his words. And when that person also makes the conscious decision to willfully cause conflict between community members and potential loss to local businesses from a place of anonymity, I call him a coward. And now, insinuating a threat of harm to me personally, I realize that this is an internal war that he is battling, and he's already lost. A person who will not accept personal responsibility is a person who is also bullied. Intentionally causing harm to others is a coping mechanism. City Council and city staff have seen an uptick in disrespectful communication in the last 2 years, including name calling, false accusations, and threats. Anyone wondering why children bully need not to look far for the answer. When adults communicate with the intention of verbally attacking, accusing, or demanding specific outcomes, nothing other than bullying is ever accomplished. Verbally attacking someone purely for the sake of attacking someone is not a solution. It is not a way to move the needle forward. It is not a motivator, and it certainly isn't acceptable. At last month's meeting, I had the privilege of sitting directly in front of someone who had the courage to read a written statement of differing opinion. This person looked me squarely in the eye, thanked me for my service, and proceeded to express her disagreement. Her tone was respectful, and she ended by thanking me for listening. The manner in which she communicated her beliefs and questioned mine was an excellent demonstration of respectful discourse. I did listen to her, and we spoke afterward. We have since scheduled time to meet again in an effort to better understand each other. This is how it's done. I will never forget those few minutes, her courage, and her desire to give voice to her concerns while also acknowledging the difficulty of my position. We must do better, and this is one way we can do that. We need to be willing to work together as equal partners to create an environment that is respectful, collaborative, and solution-oriented. You have my promise that I will continually reflect on my own actions and words to meet this end. Thank you.
Okay, well done.
Well done.
Thank you very much. It's unfortunate because Annie shares these messages when she gets them, and I always am quick to say, I'm really sorry that this happened to you. And I agree that anyone that would level such hate without showing their face or giving you a chance to defend yourself is an extreme act of cowardice. So you put it much more eloquently than I did. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I do feel that we have entered into a time that if a large group of people decide that you're, because you think differently than them, that makes you not as good as them and that you're not worthy of their respect. And not if our society goes into this where you cannot have a differing opinion and be able to have a discourse about that differing opinion, and maybe even change someone's mind because you have a well thought out conversation, then we've got bigger problems as a society. But at this level, I appreciate your comments. I fully support them. And yes, if you have something to say about the way your elected officials are performing, have the fortitude to come down and deal with it at a meeting where it belongs.
And also city staff. You know?
Especially city staff, because they are in the front lines
Absolutely.
every single day, making sure that our city runs as best as it can. So yes, as well as our staff.
And just for the record, if anybody knows who the person is, it's a Class C felony, and I intend to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, and I will bring a civil claim for millions and millions of dollars, and I will burn them up in court as long as I can. As soon as someone steps up and says they've been impersonating me for the last 10 months.
You're gonna move.
Bring it
from
on.
Angel Heights?
What's that?
You're gonna move from Angel Heights?
Yeah, well, I've already moved from Angel Heights. I'm in Hidden Ridge. I'm moving uphill. But I just let them know. If you know who that person is, bring it to me. Fighting is what I do, and I love to fight. So bring it on. Well, it works, but yeah. And sometimes that works. It's sad, it's unfortunate.
Mhm. Especially when we're here in service.
I agree with that.
We don't need, who is gonna take our places if we're not here? Because this is the type of behavior that some people would withdraw from and withdraw from their seats.
And you're seeing that in law enforcement right now.
Right, absolutely, the mass
Because
exit,
exactly everything you talked about is exactly what's going on with law enforcement right now and how they're feeling. So keep that in mind too.
Mhm. Thank you for the time and space.
So how do we help support you guys? Because you guys, you need to be able to have a voice, and you need to have safety in that voice. Andy, and same with Robert, I'm, very sorry you have to go through this. This is exactly the opposite of the way this should happen. So what can we from the public do? Do we need to support funds to be able to find out who these people are? Do we need to create a support group that puts ads in the paper that go against this? What are the specific measurable results that we can do besides sit here and go, this is sad?
What I found, Rick, so far is that, like, I'll go to the business like McCaskill, and they posted on his Google review that I think he's a horrible person and does a horrible job. Well, then I post over the top of it, whoever this, person is, doesn't know what they're talking about, and they're clearly trying to make a statement. And then I post a nice review. But yeah, I walked into Backwoods the other night, and Nick pulled me aside and says, "Wow, did that really piss you off?" And it's like, "What are you talking about?" And he pulls it out and shows it to me. I mean, they aren't hurting me when they attack that. That's the vehicle they want to use, but they actually are hurting the businesses because person in town who wanted to hire McCaskill sent me an email and said, "Hey, you really don't like Don? I mean, I trust your opinion. Should I hire Don?" I was like, it's just absurd. So posting over these reviews, trying to bury him down if you see him or somebody tells you about it. But honestly, the back channel for Google and Gmail is so easy to do, and you can't, ISP changes, it rotates every 14 days. There's not a way to just kind of grab the person unless you're literally in their house while they're posting that through their laptop. Because I can't go to the sheriff's office and get an order. Because I don't have probable cause to go into your house and take your computer.
So there's no way, there's nobody with the technical expertise to find out who's doing it.
I'm going through 3 ex-FBI counterintelligence guys. It's cost me some money, but they all come up with the same answer. They go, the way Google's platform is set up, that's the thing. And Yelp is even worse. So a lot of these reviews will show up through either a Yelp channel, or what they do is you go to your web page and it has a Google review and you can click on it and then you can leave a review there. But it's interesting because if you click on that Google review, it has my picture. It goes to some weird Gmail account. It's not associated with me. Because if you go to my Gmail account, click on it, it'll show the 6 reviews I've ever posted in my entire Gmail history. Mm-hmm. So that's, I've been told I just can't get to the next layer. So it's literally just finding out. Small community, I assume somebody's going to let it slip at some point. Oh, I had fun posting, stuff against Annie, or I impersonated Rob Ferris. They've impersonated Todd Kingston. I mean, it's more than a handful of folks. If it's one person, they're really having a lot of fun.
Well, it's really important that this kind of behavior have some consequences. So my question is, first thing is to be aware from my standpoint of the public is that I sincerely apologize for all the pain and suffering that you guys have to go through trying to just do your damn job. So, first I want you to know that. And the second is that, is there something the public can do? And if there is, what is it that we can do out there? Can we put some ads into the paper? Can we write something in the weekly column? I mean, what can we do? Think about that, and if there's something that comes up, email me, let me know.
Yeah, and Rick, I'm personally trying not to blow any smoke to it, to give it any oxygen.
Right.
I'm just hoping that somebody's going to get bored with whatever this transformation is that they're having.
And that's great, and that may be the best thing. Just know that, as a member of the public, I think it's important to protect you guys.
No, I do appreciate
that. And that is one of the frustrating parts, is that even as the person that's involved with this can't do anything, there's even less that someone that's not even involved in hand wringing doesn't really get anything done
Well, you know,
either.
we
But,
can't write-
and it's hard to say you're doing a bad thing. You know, it's like here, I don't know how many people are gonna hear. We're all gonna say what you said was really, really great. If the person that's doing it here, that's just gonna make their job even better. So it's human nature. It's the technology problems that we have now. Technology hasn't been great, but then there's these subversive opportunities that are at this point are inescapable.
So Scott, are you saying it may be better just to kind of just let you ignore it? Is that what you're concerned?
I mean, really, that's like, you know, I mean, I talked to you on the phone and told you sort of what was going on. I was like, I can't pinpoint a location. You know, so we're, you know, I've talked to Sheriff, and so has like Christy McCaskill, who's running for my seat, but it's her business that I personally purportedly attacked. So, and it was the same day that we were having a little, you know, YouTube thing with the Women's League of Voters. So it's clear that the person is connected to what's going on. It's not somebody, well, maybe sitting in Portland, but I doubt it. I mean, it's.
Well, I'm glad you guys are, have the intestinal fortitude to just not drop it and continue on and do your jobs. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your concern. Yes, Kurt.
Yeah, I think that how the community can support those who are attacked and the people who you go to get help with this. Cybercrime is going to be on the rise because it's a brand new, well, especially for rural communities, a brand new branch of enforcement. And when we reported this issue to the sheriff's office, of course, they were very understanding and took a thorough report. But we really need to provide them with resources to have, maybe bring some expertise to the force related to cybercrime, because this is just one small sliver of the possible crime that could happen, especially as the community grows. To take a more proactive stance and what are we going to do about cybercrime as it escalates? This is pretty harmless in the sense that it doesn't really do any damage, but if you don't have the ability to bring in people who have expertise to do the kind of investigation needs to be done, you can't even begin to do anything. I think there might be a case might be made that if Google is the platform of how much people can, you know, peruse their fantasies, that they should be held a certain amount of accountability, and they can be held responsible for what gets posted. And even though they may not want us poking around, we can make them poke around and do their own research. But again, this is a discussion for a different place at a different time. But the fact is that there are things the community can do to make it easier, or at least give us the resources to let the community know that we're working on it, that we're going to try and get ahead of the cybercrime curve. And now's as good a time as any.
So I agree that in big cities, if you call and say that someone stole your laptop out of your car, they're going to say, we're really sorry about that. But that ransomware attack on the pipeline on the East Coast, there were, because we're talking millions of dollars, and that's national security right there, national resources. Somebody actually got a lucky, because there was an organization working on that case, caught a lucky break through Bitcoin, which is unheard of, and got a lot of that money back again. So you're right, cybercrime enforcement is on the rise. It's going to be leveled at some of the bigger crimes. Hopefully that'll start to trickle down. And hopefully, if there's enough of these conversations, some of these places, entities like Google and Yelp will develop some tools to help us help ourselves on that, or at least give local law enforcement an opportunity to make a difference.
I do want to say something in response to some of the comments that were made here, and that was that this has been a pretty harmless situation thus far, and I would like to counter that by saying it might be harmless to somebody who doesn't have a history of victimization. You know, I'm a rape victim, and this is very triggering. The power and control is there, and it came back in a second for me. So this is not a harmless situation. This person may not know it, but that's how I responded to it. The other thing is that I do think this is one person and the same person. And I think it's a personal vendetta. And I think that he is living in his own version of his own hell. I don't know that there's anything we can do to prevent this. This is his own story, the narrative that he's created for his life. And so I just keep asking myself, well, how can I take the higher road?
You did a fine job tonight.
And that's just,
Did a fine job. Okay, so before we put these bad thoughts behind us, would anyone else like to chime in?
Yes, I've noticed on Facebook, actually, I mean, we have, I don't know if it's legal or not, these fake names on Facebook, but we probably, we have plenty of that going on in our community as well. And I mean, I was a victim of that today. And I want to echo Annie McHale's sentiment, because my wife and I have been community activists for a long time. And it's not easy when somebody you know is a fake person on Facebook makes allegations that aren't true. And so I'm pretty tough. I mean, and it affects me. And so I can appreciate what you're saying. So I think if I'm tough and I've been through a lot of issues in my life, or a lot of people that said things that weren't true about me, and even been the subject of hit pieces in small publications at places, and it can bother me for half a day, and I have to deal with it. And yet I'm pretty seasoned compared to most people. Who else is not going to ever run for public office? And I'm going to tell you that most people will not, right? Because they're going to get hit the first time. And if it's never happened to them before, with me, I can say, hey, that's happened here, happened here, happened here. Tough. What are they going to do? Kill me? So I can develop that thick skin. But I'm telling you, most people I know don't have that thick skin because they weren't community activists for 30 years. So I just, so it isn't a harmless thing when that's done. And it's pretty serious. And as far as finding out who did it, who's done some of the stuff against Annie here, I don't know there is much, but when this first started, I think I communicated with some of you, well, they could say that I did it next. Oh, yeah. That they could blame me and say that I've come after you, that it's Pat Rice doing it. So I've written to you and told you that I'm sorry this is happening, but I've also contacted the sheriff's office, and I said, and I've encouraged them to reach out to people like the FBI who may have resources to find out who these people are. This is just one. I think that fake Facebook stuff is probably legal and there's nothing you can do about it other than the people that are doing that. I mean, they got to live with the fact that they're a weak individual. And I think there is probably more than one. And we all have our suspicions on who some of these people are. But the sheriff's office, I mean, and what you said, Rick, I personally offered money too as well to help contribute. And if there's anything they can do to find any of it. I mean, Facebook is probably legal. What happened to me today, there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, Pat, at least you and I know we sat on my front porch and we talked through it. We'll always do that. We'll have discourse and we'll have solid dialogue back and forth, but you and I'll do it face to face. It may be electronic, but you'll know it's coming from me and I'll know it's coming for you. That's what I appreciate about you, Pat. Thank you. And Rick, and that's how I can have those conversations. And I'm not worried that it's either of you that are attacking us. I think we got a bigger moment. We're just all caught up in the loop. So. But that's unfortunate for Annie because it is a trigger and that's not fair to you as a human being. It's completely wrong.
never to anybody, whether I have a trigger or not.
No, yeah, I mean, but I've got the thick skin, right? I can deal with it in a different fashion than you can, and
Right.
That's just, yeah, it's not right across the board.
Mhm. So that's what I'm suggesting is that those of us sitting here in this room right now, and anybody who's watching this in the future or who's here now, is that we really reflect on our own communication style and what it is that we do want to present to the other person we're communicating with, and how can we use that opportunity to create a partnership rather than mudslinging and accusations and demands that we respond the way they expect us to respond. It's just, we have to see each other as human beings again and treat each other with respect.
Can we tie one thing in here with what Kurt had said here? Maybe we can have this conversation with the police department and what we can do to help support them, and then have some sort of presentation about how to do that. That's going to be something that's going to be countywide. I think the police department would be quite interested in that. So I know all this is really great talk, but again, specific measurable results would be great. So is that something that you'd be willing to do, is have a conversation with them on what they need, what resources can we offer them?
Yeah, we've kind of done that on our own, just in filing every time this happens, I just forward it right to Sergeant Clifford. And we've had some conversations with him about that, but it might be that if there is a greater number of people at that meeting, perhaps somebody will hear something differently or new, and maybe create some more momentum to move
Well,
forward.
my request would be is if it is in a future council meeting, put it on the council meeting and have some sort of homework done on it, on some ideas of how to do it. In other words, this is not just can go, we're very, really sorry, just let it disappear. Let's again go and have the discussion and go, this is probably something that the police department would love to have a discussion about. We'd love to see if there's some way they can get more community support to be able to do this. Again, like Kurt was saying, get ahead of this, because it's going to become more and more a problem as time goes on. So what is the possibility? Maybe, I'm jumping way ahead to the end of this meeting. This is the request, this be put on the agenda here in the next, next couple of meetings one time, is let's have a more detailed discussion on what can we do specifically to help the police department so that we do have some tools.
Do we want to have maybe a task force, a team that goes to the sheriff's department initially, and then present to the council what was discussed as options during that meeting? So sound good or not? Or does anybody have another
Well,
idea?
I could see that it would be as easy as an invite,
Yeah.
for sure.
Especially because there are so many businesses and so many individuals that are involved in this. It certainly does raise it, I think. Because we're just at a time in just society in general where these businesses cannot afford to lose business because of these threats. Of course, my own concern is just my own safety and my response to this as a trigger, but secondarily and very close to my primary safety is that these businesses who are completely innocent in this are being negatively impacted. And that's not fair.
It's also defamatory.
Yeah.
It's also defamatory, absolutely. Yeah, if anybody has read the reviews, they're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. The review that was written.
Sheriff Brown knows Judge Dredd. I thought it was kind of funny. Because Sheriff Brown didn't even know Judge Dredd. So if I called Sheriff Brown and say, hey, you're Judge Dredd, he goes, who's Judge Dredd? So we had, again, I'm not trying to take away from what you're saying, but some of this stuff is just.
Yeah, but my
silly.
review on your was sexual harassment. That's horrible.
I know, and it was during witness prep, which I never had to prep you as a witness. So that was that. Well, I love that.
Right?
It
was terrible.
Again,
absolutely terrible. And another one was written on my employer's website, so that could have cost me my job.
Yep. Well, I've had, let's see, emails to my HR department saying that I'm a white racist. These postings that are on the the Martindale Hobble, that I should have been fired from my job, which is ironic. They don't know how a law firm works, which is even more interesting. Sadly, very sadly, I've actually gotten calls to do work because they believe that I am that person.
Oh, no.
So I whoever it is, if you're out there watching tonight and you're enjoying yourself, thanks. You put a few bucks in my pocket. I appreciate it. But at the end of the day, I'll find you one day. I'll find you. It's just, but it's sad because just counting the number of businesses in our community that have been affected by this, I'm up to almost 10.
Oh my God.
We don't have that many businesses. Come on, this is absurd.
Yeah.
Kurt?
Sorry.
And I might add that there are all the hidden dangers too. The fact that if crime starts out small and it's not curtailed, that it only tends to grow. And so by allowing it to go uncontested and unchallenged, only encourages it to get worse. So at some point you have to realize that the potential can be much bigger, like what just happened in South Africa, for instance, where they encrypted all their database and stopped everything the government could do down there, except that it happened to have backups. But it's a vulnerability that is easily exploited all over the globe, and even especially in small communities that don't have the greatest technical advances. So by not having the tools to actually, so people don't know or think or know that it's not being prosecuted, or that, you know, that you're basically helpless, only encourages them to continue their victimization. So the danger is not only in not curtailing the damage that it does or the damage it doesn't do, but in encouraging them to do more and to escalate their efforts to be successful.
Thanks everyone for your thoughts. Yeah, sure it would be as easy as an invitation.
Mhm.
Sure, or some.
Somebody, yeah. The Sheriff's Department, I'd be willing to be on that initial phone call.
I guess my question would be, have there been actually complaints filed with the sheriff's office then?
Oh, yeah.
And
So they're active, so
Well,
there's
they're
an
active
active,
file.
okay, there's an active file, and
Yeah.
so it's an active investigation.
Yeah.
And so I can tell you from the sheriff's office side of things, we may not be privy to all the things that are going on right now with that case too.
Mhm.
So, so just a glimmer of hope, just know that there may be some things going on in the background
That we're not aware
that
of.
we as victims don't know, but at some point, somebody's gonna get hammered.
Mhm.
And it isn't gonna be at a real opportune time either.
Is it ever? Yeah.
But I think that if the community insists that it's important, that it would encourage them to maybe seek grant money or whatever. If we say it's important enough, and they don't have resources, but they see the value in having someone who's a cybercrime expert or has cybercrime training, but we don't have it in the current, they're obviously stretched way thin now.
Right.
So it's not gonna be something they can just turn on because they would have done it if they could have by now. But it might be that they know that we would stand behind them and pursue grant monies or allow a budget expansion to hire this person and bring that technology on board. If I were in the sheriff department, I think that would be encouraging to me. It's important enough that they're willing to put money in where their mouth is.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about going in and stating what's going on. Actually, it's going and saying, how can we help you? You know, how can we create this and to have this be more robust? Yeah.
And again, with the sheriff's office, they have to balance everything out. And so the way they're running right now may not provide them the opportunity to take the resources that they have right now and refocus them on this particular incident. And so that's a real challenge for administration, is to try to balance all of that out. And so if there's some way to reevaluate that and to refocus maybe some additional funding, grants or whatever, to further train one of the detectives in cyber crimes, then that would be advantageous for them.
That's the conversation.
Yeah.
That's the conversation.
That's a conversation that needs to be
Andy's
had
talking about
with the
having.
sheriff, yeah.
Just as a public comment, Ben Shoemaker, Stevenson resident. If you focus on it as a cybercrime issue, I hope that you will consider it as a public cybercrime issue at large and not just as impersonation.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's more to cybercrime than what we're talking right here.
Yeah,
I worked the fraud side of things for quite a while, and yeah.
Yeah, to continue, I don't want to see my elected representatives protect themselves in a different way than they would protect the rest of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's the fear out there is that, you know, Annie, you get it one day and, you know, I'm just one comment away from being right in your book.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
That's why I say it will escalate. I mean, these big ransomware attacks just didn't start overnight. They start by hijacking small companies or, you know, getting back at their ex-employers, and these like-minded people gather together in larger criminal groups and they turn into a major enterprise. It doesn't start out many things as small potatoes, and that's what we're talking about right now, small potatoes. We want to keep small potatoes.
They're testing the waters right now.
They're training.
Yep, absolutely.
I suppose one way that the community could help too is if you see something suspicious on Facebook or in a Google review, counter it.
Or you.
If
hear
you feel
something.
safe, post a remark saying, you know, I really think this is a fake account, or I think this is false information. I mean, support the victim. And I know that that's difficult too. I've had people say, well, I really wanted to, you know, say some, you know, to write a response to this, but I was afraid because I knew that I would just get hammered. So, you know, it's a very large population. Our entire population is being affected by this. Absolutely.
Well, that's the purpose. The purpose is to put you in the sewer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, lots of good thoughts. Thanks, everyone. And we'll keep it moving. Next up, Leona.
On a happier note, we're getting funding for our wastewater treatment plant.
Yay!
At only 1.5% interest.
Nice.
And it comes with a large portion that is forgivable principal, over $900,000 of that. And so, but in order to accept the money, so I have a draft agreement in here. This isn't the final version, but part of one step to get the final version is for council to approve a resolution accepting the funding and authorizing the mayor to sign the loan agreement. And so that is what's before you today is that document. And they're still working on some other portions of paperwork as well. So I do hope to have the loan signed and done, if not by the end of this month, possibly maybe by the end of October.
What is forgivable principal?
Yeah.
Oh, forgivable principal is grant.
Thank you.
It's money that we don't have to pay back.
Yeah. And it was 900,000?
It's over 900,000. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's
I saw it, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. Just okay.
936.
I round. Yeah, it's on page 67, I guess, that total. So $931,946 is the forgivable principal grant amount.
Mm-hmm.
And then $9,004,054 is the total loan amount.
There we go. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I would move to approve resolution 2021-361, authorizing the mayor to sign state revolving fund loan agreement with Washington State Department of Ecology in the amount of $9,936,000 at 1.5% interest.
So before that is seconded, can you state the resolution number again?
Resolution number 2021-381.
Thank you.
Annie?
Yeah, I'll second that.
First and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Exciting news.
It is. Yes.
Get your pen ready.
Next, so council rules of procedure. At the last council meeting, there was someone that submitted an anonymous comment, and we don't have anything in our rules that prohibit that. And so this adds that as a prohibition, basically someone, because you can't come to a council meeting and state it anonymously, you have to state your name. So this allows it for people to submit emails, they have to state their name and where they're from, just as if they were from stating it in person.
So does that mean, question, since we have been seeing strings of emails coming from people as, say,
An organization.
an organization, but they don't ever identify themselves? Our staff is taking a lot of time answering that crap. And so every time I read one of those, I get ticked off because they don't have the guts to state their name They hide behind their computer, and I've got a real issue with that. And so I think that part of these procedures need to include the response that city staff has to emails that are anonymous.
So we wouldn't be able to withhold a records request from an organization.
But it has to be a legitimate organization.
So we get an email from,
If someone says organization, they want these records, we would have to follow up to confirm that that is a valid organization before we would ever respond.
so if it's from Save Our County,
Save Our County, but we go and we find that Save Our County has never been registered as a 503c nonprofit, whatever it is. No, we don't have to talk to you.
okay.
It should be on the shoulders of the person who's doing it. Why should the city have to do that?
Well, if a records request are forced on us,
Yeah, you have to.
we gotta spend the money on that.
We are compelled.
That's the crappy part of a records request.
But the thing is, they have to be identified, and these people are they're computer nerds that have nothing else to do. Well, there you go. There's my unpolitical thoughts on it.
I actually agree. I think that, you know, we also get a lot of requests from non-city residents. And not just requests, but statements as well. And that takes a lot of your time too. I mean, especially in this last month or two, there have been a lot of requests from non-city residents. What is our obligation?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Geographic doesn't limit your public record
As
request for
Ken was
fileability.
pointing out, there's organizations that make quite a bit of money when
Yeah.
cities don't respond, or entities don't respond in a timely manner or in the manner that they're supposed to.
Seriously?
It's the statute favors those who request that information.
So,
But there's a definition of the information that you can request, and it needs to fall within those parameters, and that's unfortunate because Leona then has to be trained into spotting that. You can't ask for certain things because it doesn't fall under a public records request.
And I tend to err on the side of providing information.
Right.
Sure.
Which is very wise.
So-
You know, as far as the response from an organization, you are also allowed to confirm that they're not for commercial purposes. Now, we have policies that are published, and that includes some of those requirements. But Leonna's absolutely right. Err on the side of caution. You know, it's the
But
cost of not responding is vastly more than the cost.
but those policies would fall outside this handbook.
Yeah.
I was
Yes.
actually thinking of individuals who are,
They can
Right, either
ask.
outside of the county or outside of the city.
Maybe outside the state.
Yeah.
and you still have to answer them,
Yep.
even if it's,
So if it's a public records request, yes. As far as responding with information, I also err on the side of it's better to respond than it is to have no response. And part of that is just the general public discourse with public. And so the automatic response is if you don't respond, you're hiding something. And that can then trigger an escalation response. And so, again, trying to increase transparency and being open with what's going on and providing that information, but also trying to balance that with the time that it takes to respond.
right, and other things that are,
Right.
you know, the responsibilities are higher. I mean, what's the word I'm thinking of? It's more of a priority.
And we do try to balance that as best we can.
This policy is just dealing with what happens with comments for public meetings for your council.
Yeah, got it. Okay,
And
thank you. both of you.
one of the things that I also forgot to throw into the change, on page 77, we changed the way that we do public hearings. So before there was a set time for a public hearing, now they're just as the meeting progresses. And I would like to move presentations from outside agencies above public hearings so that if
So 6 and 5, okay.
yeah, giving a presentation, they don't have to wait until after the public hearing.
Yes.
Mhm.
I've been kind of doing that as I remember, but since we're changing the policy.
Okay.
So is that included in the changes?
It's
It's
not-
not
gotta
included in
add-
the changes,
add
I just caught it today
Yeah.
as I was talking to Alan about his presentation he had to give after
So
the.
the motion could include that change, just by
stating it, right?
stating the change of order.
Mhm.
And then the staff can make the change in the actual written policy.
All right, so I make a motion to approve ordinance resolution 2021-382, amending the city council rules of procedure with the changes as discussed, actually just switching the role of presentations from outside agencies, number 6 to number 5 before public hearings, which is currently number 5.
Second.
First and second, any other discussion? All there's that.
Aye.
Did I get tonight from you?
Oh, sorry, yes.
We need you. We all want
The person who made the motion doesn't approve.
actually for
It happens.
resolution.
Okay, lease agreement. I received an email from Karen Douglas and she said, hey, before I go looking for other places to pay for rent, you have room downstairs. We do have room downstairs. Go figure. And so, and we're also working on clearing up some more room with records and everything, but she took a look at the space and it works for her. And I don't know if anyone's gone downstairs recently. If you want, feel free. But she is currently in more or less the western half of the building and has sort of made her office, and then also the western half of the records area, which has been cleared out anyway. We've made some improvements to technology as well, so a lot of the infrastructure downstairs we don't need, and it's great. I think she's going to be painting the door as well so that it doesn't look super hideous. I did let her know. She does know though that we're not into putting much money into it because the overall goal or the end goal will be to remodel the downstairs. But it is a $0 lease more or less because it's for another government agency. And so we now have 2 agencies able to utilize the space and save that from their budget.
What's the lease length for term?
It's month to month.
Oh,
You
perfect.
terminate it anytime.
Okay. Sweet.
30 days notice.
Sweet.
I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the lease agreement with Educational Services District 112 as presented.
Second.
So first and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Leo?
And here comes the fun part. I know everyone's been waiting.
Oh, dude.
You're waiting for me to hit send on that last version. It's all in there, I'm sure.
Sleepless nights.
Right. So I'm putting my big old asterisk on this. This is the very initial budget and there will be changes. And I will do further analysis and the first public hearing will be at the next council meeting. But this gives you just an overall picture of all the projects that we have and just the general direction that the budget is going. But I also need confirmation on a couple of things before I do that further analysis. And so one of them is the cost of living adjustment. So we typically follow the CPI for the Western states, and it's 5.1% this year. So that is included in the budget.
What was it last year?
0.8.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a
5%.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
But again, that's the cost of everything's going up.
Mhm.
So my perspective on COLAs are, and we're kind of experiencing this with Mid-Plenty Economic Development District. If you don't kind of keep up with the salaries as it goes,
Yeah,
you're gonna have to make larger jumps, and then as you have to backfill positions, you're out of the market and you have to take a bigger chunk and it hurts a lot more and it's harder to recruit. The other, so that's one, just consensus I would need. You'll have a formal resolution approving the salary steps with that COLA, if that's the direction you want to go. The other one is that all the projects and priorities are kind of funded in as directed for the SMART goals that were adopted back in April. And so I sent out those with the initial packet, just so you have time to review them as well. So that being said, there's of course, you know, a large chunk of it is going to wastewater. There are also some water projects on here. So there's the Loop Road water line replacement. What that does is that replaces the water line and its AC line, and it's roughly from here to the intersection with Vancouver. And this was identified when we were going to be resurfacing Loop Road and doing some stormwater improvements. A couple of years ago, we were going to apply for a grant. We're trying to do the infrastructure first before we do that road piece. So the water section is here. We're doing the sewer section, and that goes north, and then that would cover it. And then we'd be ready to do the street portion as well as stormwater when that time comes and when we get that grant, and we won't have to dig it up shortly after we do that. There's also the West Vancouver water line replacement and Foster Creek water line relocation. Those were identified as part of possibly being done this year because the projects which kind of necessitated those and other priorities have taken precedent. They're pushed out to next year, and so that's where they're included for 2022. The proposed rate increases are included in the revenue projections. So for water, it's 5% as we've adopted by ordinance. For sewer, the proposed rate increase is about, currently it's 15% is the rate increase. And so based on the rate study that was done, it'd be 15% for the next 3 or 4 years, the next 3 years, dropping down to 12% and then dropping down to 7%. And what that does is over the 5 years, it makes it a zero-sum game, because what's going to happen is while we don't necessarily have all of those costs right now, we're going to have them come the time that we have to start paying back our loan for that $9 million. And it's easier to take it step by step than it is to do a huge jump to that final amount. And then also that final amount may need to be larger again to ensure that the revenues and expenses over those 5 years equal balance out. So I'll get more information and provide more analysis and information on the rate projections when we get there. But just as a heads up, that would make it I think just over $103 for base fee for sewer.
And we're at 90 right now.
93, I believe, right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for the first year. Then you have 15% in 2022, 15% in 2023, right?
The initial projection, I believe, was $186 a month. And that was in the sewer plan from 2017. My goal is to get it to 160 something. And hopefully we'll be able to make that. We'll see how it goes. Staff is doing a really good job with managing the plant and the biosolids. And so that cuts down on the costs for hauling. And so we've continued to see those. The concern I have is once COVID changes and more businesses come in after the restrictions are lifted for our plan as well. So we'll see. But again, I believe that the SIUs will continue to do their part in ensuring that they side stream and don't impact the plan as much. We have and I don't know that I put it in the budget, but it's a zero-sum game, which is the Columbia Realignment Project. That grant is 100% grant, and it's $200,000. It's an integrated planning grant, and so that's next on the agenda, actually. But it's a combination of brownfields and economic development plan for realigning Columbia Avenue. So, and then that will give us information on whether or not we want to move forward on that project, what the feasibility is of that. For the street fund, there's an overlay from Iman Cemetery to Osprey. And then Rock Creek Stormwater, that is part of the Rock Creek lift station project that we've identified. So that really is just a roll from this year to next year because the project was delayed. In City Hall, some of our computers are nearing their end of life. And so based on the cost of things, chips and processors and all that fun stuff, it's about $10,000 to replace all the computers in City Hall. And then again, slight increase to sales tax. Actually, I think I kept sales tax flat for now, but I'll see what it's trending to see if I'm comfortable with raising it.
Didn't you do something like this last year because of COVID? We didn't know what sales were going to be. How did that pan out? Where, you know, for the total year, how did we fare with all that?
So, so on page 130, that is where we have our budgeted and actual numbers.
Okay.
So for 2020, our actual sales tax is kind of in the middle of the page. It was $236,000. And that included a 2-month full shutdown of the lodge.
Right.
So again, being conservative, not knowing what 2021 was going to look like, I threw in 230. And then also hadn't touched it for 2022 yet. And so right now we're coming in higher than that projection.
Good. Nice.
So we'll continue to keep an eye on it.
Okay.
And in some of this, I am trying to kind of go back to 2011 or 2013 and kind of seeing what those numbers were as a benchmark to kind of gauge what a slower recovery kind of looks like.
Right.
So there is a little bit of room for a little bit of increased revenue there. And then a 1% increase to sales tax as well as new homes, new construction.
Okay.
Is there a limit on how much we can charge on sales tax?
7.5%.
Well, yes,
Well,
yes and no.
I'm talking about increasing.
So we can go to the voters and ask for an increase. I believe whatever increase we ask for, though, has to be specific to a cost. So I think we've done the 0.2 for law enforcement.
Right.
There's another portion for chemical dependency or.
Well, there's a housing one.
Yeah, there's the housing one. And so that's,
There's a 911 one in there too.
right.
Yeah.
And so that's why when you go to, Tacoma or whatever, and it's like 10%, it's because they have all these added on
Right.
Yeah.
taxes.
So we would have to designate a receiver for the
For that
increase.
particular sales tax. Okay.
And I don't know how many more are councilmanic.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating that, by the way.
Right, no.
I'm just
Well-
curious as to where we come up with just adding 1%.
So one thing I wanted to talk about, kind of going back to streets. So AWC, does everyone get the AWC updates? So this last one that they sent out had information on the state of transportation in cities. And so they have this great infographic talking about just the state of transportation, what all goes into the travel lane, but also how it's funded. And if you look on page 142 of your council packet, in the very middle of that page, that intergovernmental revenues, that's what we get from the state. And so that's what we get from fuel tax and multimodal transportation. So that's about, $35,000.
Fuel tax and what else?
And multimodal transportation. So we get $35,000 from the state specifically for funding streets. Everything else are funds. So we then, the city decided to put the second half of their sales tax to streets. So we have, the city has a 1% sales tax that we get directly. And that 1% is split for general fund and the streets. So, and then we also have our, we also put the PUD excise tax in streets and our liquor profit tax in streets. And so where this infographic shows that 79% comes from local general revenue, that's where it's coming from. The 13%, I believe it's a lot less than that on our end. I haven't done the actual percentages. Comes from the state from specific revenue sources distributed to transportation. And so this is part of the reason why cities were advocating for transportation benefit districts. So that when you have your car tax, you're buying a car and it's for the street that your car drives on. And so that's kind of what people are trying to do with some of these revenue things or revenue funding streams. But I just wanted to provide you with a picture of, when we go through an audit and they're looking at restricted revenues and they say, well, what are you doing with your street fund? Because those are very restricted revenues. I'm like, it's gone. So don't worry about that because it doesn't even cover salaries to sweep the streets.
Right.
Our revenue or expenses for operations and maintenance are $357,000.
Holy shit.
So again, that's just kind of a funding picture of how it happens. The counties, if you live in the county and you look on your tax statement, there's a specific tax floor roads for the city of Stevenson specifically. It's all rolled into your property tax. There is no separate road tax, I guess is what I'm saying. So.
Okay.
Can you scroll up to that per mile graphic? So the planning commission does a thought of the month every month, and this month there was a link to an assessment done by some community in Wisconsin. And it was a 20-year-old subdivision, just had to have its street repaved. It reached its life and they needed to repave that. Every tax dollar that the city collected within that 20 years equaled the repave job.
Oh, good.
And so this, I can't read the exact numbers on there, but the streets and maintaining the streets is astounding in its costs. And I think what Leon is showing is there's not a lot of direct funding for that.
So there's a lot of talk, with the infrastructure bill about, put it to infrastructure, but then there's also conversations, well, how can we build it back better? Because it's just gonna go away. I mean, you're gonna have to have the same problem in 20 years.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay.
The city council took a step toward making that situation a little bit better when you all reduced the required road width for new local streets. You can do some assessments on what that would look like for repaving at a certain amount of time, but there are opportunities for you to impact exactly how much that is, or if it's not bleeding in some way. through your zoning codes, through your land use development codes, through your public works standards. And that's a big component too of the affordability issues that you talked about in other places.
Right.
Okay.
So I think in general on this, I'm just looking for, direction to confirm that the COLA is appropriate. We can have a discussion on something different if that, is the direction you want to go. And just confirming, the priorities and the projects more or less that we have listed, if there are things that need to be added or reprioritized. We can also discuss that as well. And if you're not prepared to talk about it now, that's fine. It would just be helpful to get information on that or have a discussion before the next meeting as well.
I would kind of like to wait until we got our other two members here, especially for the confirmation of the council priorities that we adopted in April, and also on consensus and any changes. COLA, is there a cap to how much we can? So we could raise it anything we wanted, but we're just trying to make
not collectively bargained, so you
okay.
can, it's really up to council.
Okay.
You can't get public funds by something outrageous.
Right.
You have evidence that that's relevant.
That is warranted, yeah.
So if we use COLA, then that's a basis for.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right. You're not gonna have a problem and not it.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, so I would like to wait until we have full council. And maybe that's something that we can include, maybe it's homework for us too, so that when we come next month, we are ready to have a conversation and perhaps move things forward if we need to.
Okay. We'll have a public hearing at the October 21st meeting.
Okay.
And then we'll also have a special council meeting on November 8th.
Right.
And then there'll be a final hearing on November 18th. Just because that's final hearing is like loosely used term. You can have more public hearings.
Yeah.
It's just we're required to have two, and so that's the second final. We just statute. It'd be really nice to adopt it by December 31st. I have been in a city where they did not, but they had a special council meeting on January 1st.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Did we meet on the 1st? Or was it the
I
second?
think it was after the first.
Yeah.
The second,
But it was definitely after it was definitely in the new year.
Yeah.
But there was definitely a quick meeting to approve budget. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Anyone else on the budget? No?
Nope. If you see anything or have any questions, I'm more than open to having a meeting with you, or just if email works best too. And it can be after hours as well. So.
Yeah, Leanna, I might do that with the 2022 budget. Yeah. I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
All right, Ben, looks like you're up.
All right, Leanna stole my thunder. So you all are aware that we received authorization for the DOE funds for evaluating the concept of realigning Columbia Avenue. This grant will help you really evaluate that, whether or not this concept is actually a good idea. And it has because there are potential brownfields or contamination of the soils involved with this site. DOE creates these programs to get them back into productive use. And so the overall program allows for a real bottom to top evaluation of how to get this site back into productive reuse. So at the bottom layer, it authorizes more testing of the soils there to know how bad it is, the extent of any contamination that's there, doing feasibility analysis for remediating any contamination that's currently there, doing architectural designs and renderings of the buildings that are there. Not only that, doing market studies to make sure that those buildings, if they were to be built, are going to have a return on investment for potential developers that might purchase the new or the remediated brownfield properties. It's a $200,000 grant. It's a no match grant. You all are asked in this case to approve a small contract of just over $3,000 to help us finalize the scope of work between the city and the state for this grant. This is something that the state suggested. They've seen cities flounder as far as getting a scope of work that's going to produce what the state wants to see through this grant program. So they suggested this and we thought that's a good idea. So you have this contract with Mall Foster and Alonji. We issued an RFQ for consultants on this a couple months ago. This was the firm that was selected. It's the firm that performed the existing conditions analysis for us in the past and assisted us with writing this IPG, integrated planning grants, to the state to begin with. So the small contract that you have now will create that scope of work, and will do so after engaging the affected landowners in that corridor. So we are able to benefit from the remainder of some funds that Skamania County received from the EPA related to brownfields. And so the overall total for the project is closer to $5,000. The city portion of this is only $3,000. So we're leveraging as much as we can and investing in really deciding whether this is a concept to move forward with, or whether it's something that looks good in architectural rendering, and that's where it should stay.
I'd move to approve the contract with Mall Foster belonging in the amount not to exceed $3,690.
Second.
The first and second, any other discussion? All there, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Approved. Okay, you do have some information items in your packet. It's a great update. They're not all great updates, but it was good to see the updates that Olga gave us from before.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say the $2 million.
Well, the $2 million coming in to the scenic areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
About time.
Yeah.
Time.
That was $20 million when they, I mean, it's $20 million that they left when they shut the window on for the gorge.
10.
Well, it was 10 on each side. It's $20 million. It was
Well, I
over.
guess that's true.
Yeah.
It'll slow the rate of this check.
Yeah.
All right, staff reports.
Okay, I will go first. Alex Ralston, our interdisciplinary parking coordinator, assistance from the UW School of Public Policy, is hard at work. Today was the first day of a usage study for downtown parking spaces. So overall, his effort is going to produce for you. It has already produced an inventory of all the parking spaces in the downtown area. Wow. So we know what's there. This usage study will tell us what the demand is for that supply of parking spaces. So
Does that, excuse me, Ben, does that include private, like A&J's parking lot, that kind of thing?
It does.
Okay.
The inventory includes all parking spaces downtown.
Okay.
The usage study, we're doing it in two ways. So for all of the on-street parking spaces, we are counting, how those are being used by automakers. In the core area, 2nd Street, 1st Street, Russell Street, we are counting how each space is used, every hour, and whether or not, the cars in each space turn over, whether it's a new car every hour. For the periphery, we're just going on the block-based basis. So there are 8 cars along this block face during the noon hour. There are 7 cars during the 1 o'clock hour. And so that's underway. Today was day number 1 of that, a Thursday, a middle of the week, normal day. We will be doing a second day on Saturday to show what weekend traffic might be like. Ideally, Alex would have been able to get here earlier in the summer so that this would have occurred sometime in the heart of the summer, but that's not the case. So we're assessing how it's used at different times of the day, on different days, in one season, but now we have the basis to perform this with a volunteer set that'll help us perform that during the height of the season, so we can see how things are changing. What's there, how it's used. He'll also do a gap analysis to show where additional parking, on-street parking could be provided. That information will turn over to the transportation planning consultants that we have to estimate what it would cost to provide that on-street parking. That'll be as planned right now. That's the completion of the parking analysis. What we need to do after that is to assess what new development might do to that, how it will impact parking model. And so that planning grant, we hope to include that as a component for that corridor. And so if we know, I skipped over one concept and I'll return to that. So if we know that that parking or that development is going to impact the supply of parking in a negative way, then we know that approximately how our regulatory standards need to accommodate that. The cost analysis will give us a basis to establish a fee in lieu of providing parking on site. So in raw numbers, this development is going to generate a need for 30 parking spaces. They're doing 20 on site, kick in to create 10 on streets, and we know what generally those 10 would cost. When it comes to making these investments, there's a concept in the parking world about the 85% rule. And so if you're looking at a parking lot or at a street corridor and 85% of that parking is being used, then that's been a good investment in that parking space. If less than 85% is used, then you've overbuilt. We've never done any assessment of that. We don't know whether our public investments are overbuilt or how long it would take to realize a return on those investments. We also don't know whether our requirements of private development require excess parking and reduce the feasibility of any development proposal.
So you're shooting, so your theory, you're shooting for at least 85% usage.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so step by step, we're getting to a point where we can really present to you what will be a parking program for the city. Right now, it's existing conditions, what's there, how it's being used, how we could add to that. And Alex has been great.
Okay, crushing it. Cool.
The Planning Commission had their first review of an update to their bylaws, so similar to your rules of procedure. I talked about this last time. It's to really solidify what public involvement means to them and how they might go about taking on any new project that they do. So That will be, if they vote on it, it could be enshrined in their bylaws. I know that several of the members of the committee that helped to create that framework wants the city council to embrace a similar set of actions. So when you go about talking about noise ordinances, conscientiously decide who you're going to engage, how you're going to engage them before a decision is made. It's available and I can provide it to you all if that's something that you're interested in. Last one, the Chinevere development. Phase 1 is what's constructed out there right now. Phase 2 and 3 is under one ownership. Phase 4 is under a separate ownership. The owner of phase 4 has signaled that they don't want to go forward with dividing that into 8 lots.
And where's that at?
That is the connection on the eastern edge of the property that would take the road where it is now, Brady Lane, and connect to Fir and Spruce streets.
Just asking because I live up there.
I was.
Yeah. The phases 2 and 3 are authorized to go forward. They have approved engineering plans in order to build. All of these phases are subject to some interim deadlines that are coming up next week. And so the owner of phase 4 said that they won't meet that deadline. And so once that expires, their vesting of that approval expires and they're okay with that. The owner of 2 and 3 needs to meet that timeline by the middle of next week. So I'll be reaching out to their representatives to see what their intent is with that. It could be that it expires next week if they don't get to that point.
So if they expire, for example, with phase 4, they're gonna let it expire. Where do they move forward if they want to? Do they have to go through the whole process again?
Have to go through the entire process.
Oh, wow.
Meeting current city standards.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
There was a 2-lot short plat that was submitted and approved and already recorded on Willard Street.
Inland? Yeah.
Yeah. And so now there are 2 lots where there had been one previously, and a lot of development review actions as Alan mentioned. So more to come.
Nice. Okay.
So the shoreline management program for the city, you should expect to see that on your next agenda or the November agenda. We submitted the city council's authorized draft that was approved in December of 2018. The shoreline management program has to be approved by the states. They're getting to the point where they're ready to issue the city a list of required and recommended changes to your approval. And when they do that, we'll send that through the Shoreline Advisory Committee and the Planning Commission to review the recommended changes to see if they want to embrace any of those and recommend them to City Council. But we'll need to adopt an ordinance which would officially adopt that new shoreline master program.
They're doing a lot.
Yeah.
They got a lot on their plates.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank them too.
So I'll do Carl's update. Kanaka underpass will be open today. If it's not open now, it'll be open tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yay, it's open.
Yay.
Counting vehicles.
Okay, yep. Okay. So,
open.
yeah, so staff did a really good job of bringing their a few people out. So they did a really good job closing up when they were had a reduced crew.
Right, nice.
So kudos to them. So striping will be done tomorrow, starting at 7 a.m. So this will be done by Clark County. 7 a.m. is a little early, so if you do drive, be very, very careful. If you have to cross anything because of the paint, it might be still wet.
Highway 14?
No.
Or
Oh, it's throughout town.
all throughout town, okay, got it.
Yeah, so last year we didn't paint because Clark County wasn't doing anything outside of their county
Uh-huh.
work. And trust me, we tried to find other people to do it. Skamania County uses Clark County.
Oh, geez, yeah, okay, got it. But this year they're back in action.
Yes, yes. And so they're gonna be hitting it tomorrow, before it rains. And we have, the other great news is our new website is live.
Yay,
So everyone's done it
how
recently.
exciting.
And here I will do a brief.
Woo, let's see it.
And so on our website, see what wet paint on the bottom.
You're so excited.
I am, it's great. And so we have these banners,
Sweet.
burn banners in effect, and so this will scroll through, and then,
that'll
I will
change.
remove that now,
Yes.
yeah. And then, this is the call for volunteers. Ben and Alex have been walking a lot today.
Oh.
So, yeah, doing hot laps there. throughout
So
town.
do you have the ability to change those banners or make changes yourself, or do
Yes,
you have to
yes.
call them all in?
Nope,
Okay.
Otters did all of those. As soon as it went
Nice.
live, he's like, sweet, and he did all of those, yesterday, so.
Good, good.
And then, this latest news banner, again, it goes to all of the news and then upcoming events.
Nice.
Again, the call for volunteers, and then it has, the council meetings,
So
here go online. So here, I will be, I have updated the city projects on here.
okay.
Working on doing a little bit better on the map, portion of all the projects. But, so for example, this is the main D project.
Mhm.
So then if you go into the project,
Oh, wow.
it's listed down in the drop down.
Nice.
It'll give you more information about it. And so this is everything that was on, that sheet, except for the Gantt chart.
Nice.
But it provides you with the data and then a little synopsis of the project, and we'll work on these as we go,
Sure.
providing more data. But there you go. And then, you can go back to the projects.
Nice.
So it's, you can also sort by open projects, closed projects. I'm working on changing, project types from planning to street. Because we have, water, wastewater, planning and administration, but we don't have
Oh,
street. So,
okay.
and we have stormwater. So,
Okay.
working on that. But yeah, so.
Great.
Nice.
Looks awesome.
Can't wait to look at it.
The news site, we will post something on Facebook and have a more formal unveiling after we clean it all up and update it, because this was transferred over, I think, back in June. And so while we've been doing some review, we still just need to kind of go through and solidify it all. So, and the front, changes, the.
Oh, yeah, scroll through.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a gallery.
Yeah.
So it's under upcoming events that people will find council meetings, correct?
Yes, and so you can actually view the calendar.
Okay.
And so the more recent one will come up, but you can also, view the entire calendar, and so.
And then the hyperlink to the
Yes,
meeting, that kind of
yes.
thing. Yeah.
Very cool. Good deal.
And this is all integrated also with our, council, with our software, so yeah, so there's the
Oh,
back
nice.
agenda. But you can
Oh,
also, if you click on just the agendas and minutes.
yeah.
It takes you to,
Yep.
all of,
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice, very cool. Good
So-
job.
Very, very
so,
nice.
and if you have any information or feedback on this, let us know. It has a great thing to where it checks the links for you, so if there's a dead link, we can run a report and
Nice.
try to be on top of those as well.
Cool.
So that's been nice. Let's see. Following on, October 4th, we're supposed to have a special meeting to talk about the deliberate growth strategy, and services outside city limits.
Right.
I guess one question is are we still wanting to have that in-person meeting, that,
Yeah, we
Why
talked
wouldn't we?
about a workshop or a town hall sort
Yeah.
of setting where we bring a lot of people together. Is that something you want to do at this moment?
I mean, my first thought is, the uptick in COVID cases, is that the wisest thing to do? Could we do a Zoom option instead? If we want to continue to do it, or make it an option for people who don't feel safe gathering in a public place. What was the date of it again?
October 4th.
That's right around the corner.
Yeah.
That means we would need to be planning right now, organizing it. And what was the time frame?
October 4th from 6:30 to 6:30 to 8.
I mean, I see the value in it. I really do. Otherwise, almost obviously we all did, because we wouldn't have set it aside at the time. It puts a burden on city staff now to try to organize this.
The burden's already there. It's whether it's COVID. What do you want to do with COVID right now?
That's really the.
It's a bad idea.
I think we just do maybe either we cancel it, which I wouldn't like to do, or we just make it a Zoom opportunity for people and see who shows up.
So hold it as a Zoom meeting versus a Zoom webinar, which is what we have, which is more restrictive for input. Is that kind of?
I don't know the difference between
That's
the two.
just technicalities.
Okay.
We can talk offline. There's some risks involved with that, so.
I think there's some challenges with doing just a Zoom meeting and opening it up to the public and.
Right, well, and I would also suggest trying to find multiple modes to get feedback as well. Not just a Zoom meeting, again, because not everyone has that technology.
What is the downside to not holding it right now because of COVID? I mean, physically holding it.
It just pushes out decisions. It delays the decision on whether or not we provide services to people that's living outside of city limits and the parameters around that. We've recently received a couple of phone calls about that. But again, I don't know if this I know one person is along a line, so if they could annex, we wouldn't be extending our service, but it's on a line that isn't ideal and is already undersized.
So by delaying it, are we also affecting anyone's timeline?
Not as far as the
Not
projects.
necessarily, because the grant doesn't, we don't have any, we already met the requirements of the grant. It's closed out. Would it impact any decisions that are made on the rest of that project?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So it wouldn't.
It's a standalone.
Okay, so canceling it doesn't have a negative effect on anyone or anyone's intentions moving forward in their project.
If they are planning a project which relies on the city council making an ordinance change, they're not planning a wise project.
Right.
Words well spoken. That's about as politically correct as you can get.
So then I guess maybe I would say, yeah, let's cancel it because it really doesn't seem to be a safe environment. I'm sorry, yes, reschedule.
So we rescheduled
Yeah.
the DEI workshop for the spring. We could do the similar thing
Okay.
with this.
Similar to like we're doing with the workshop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Diversity workshop.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So,
So do we have consensus then among the three council members?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have one question, Leona, in regards to with all the weather coming. Have we, and I'm sure that Carl has, but I'm gonna ask the question anyway. Have we pretty much taken a look at all of our storm drains and made sure that they were clear of debris and that kind of thing for the most part?
So we've been sweeping, it's kind of timely in that we've been sweeping to make sure that streets are nice, so that when they paint, they don't paint over leaves.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
And we've also, like in preparation for the fair and for other events as well, we make sure that the streets look nice too. So, and I haven't seen leaves starting to fall just yet.
Right.
One thing in talking with Carl, he was saying that the first rains do impact is the water turbidity,
Yes.
and just making sure that the plant is set to where it doesn't kick off and you have to switch sources, because everything just starts rushing into the river and it gets nice and muddy. So,
And the ground doesn't absorb it. It's all running on the top of the ground.
yeah, and so it doesn't affect I&I yet because the ground's not saturated. So there's not that impact to the sewer plant like there is in January or February. But they are taking precautions right now to make sure that that everything runs well. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just a matter of the person's on call. It's not somebody called out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But again, Rock Creek Drive, they believe that they fixed that blockage problem because they cleared it all out, and that was a major problem.
Yeah.
And the river's down low now, and again, they cleared out that blockage, so it should be flowing just fine.
Good.
But
Well, I know
it's definitely
sometimes
first test of
this
your.
one right out here plugs up.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely the first test of the system.
Yeah,
To see what's
Right.
clogged there. But if it rains hard enough, it just pushes it all out.
There you
So-
go.
At the end of the month, the governor's proclamation regarding utility shut off and lien prohibitions is lifted. And so we will begin talking to people that have past due balances on how they will be paying for them. We currently do not have a payment plan. By policy, we have been offering people to make payments on their bills. We don't have a late fee either. And so one of the ways that cities are able to offer payment plans is if they offer a payment plan with interest or with something along those lines, so that there's no gifting of public funds. If we had a late fee, you can kind of quasi say, well, that late fee is part of that, but we don't. And so what I'll be proposing at the next council meeting is some sort of policy that addresses what type of a rate that would be, and what type of requirements we would have for the plan. There are, I left it at my desk, but there's about $20,000 that we're talking about, and it's from a variety of residential and commercial customers. Some are only a couple of months behind, some have not been paying for a while. So again, just kind of working on that, and we will give our typical, we have been sending them information from LogApp and from any other agency that we have on, hey, here, contact this person. So whenever we can get them in the office, we provide them that resource. Mary's been calling them, emailing them if possible, mailing them things. So we've been trying the best we can to get them the resources that people need in order to pay their bills. And some have taken us up on that, and some have not. But that's kind of where we're at. And so the payment plan will also address how long we want it to happen.
Right.
Because some of them can be fairly high, and then also with the increase that's going to happen with the utility rates as well. So
Well, and also the staff time it takes every single time. I mean,
yeah.
If we could just nip it in the bud and say, okay, this is the penalty, or this is how we're going to approach this, then I would think that it would make your jobs easier, staff's jobs easier.
Yep.
So I would good to hear that you are, what's the word? Suggesting that they contact LogApp for assistance. A lot of folks don't know that we can help with their water bill if it's pandemic related, which almost everyone's having financial trouble now is pandemic related. But is that like on the website anywhere, or is there, that information go out on a case-by-case basis, or is there a way of broadcasting that availability?
So I think we might have, I don't know if we have the space, but I believe we tried to put it on our bills. And we put it on our Facebook page. We shared the WAGAT Facebook announcement.
Okay.
And with our new and improved website, we can post something.
Those are,
Could we maybe put it on a banner? One of the banners?
yeah,
Yeah,
because those folks that have a huge amount of arrears where they're almost paralyzed to make progress,
Right.
we can help them. probably.
well, and then I'm sure they're not thrilled to open up a letter that
Right.
from the city of Stevenson.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
So, or, you know, sometimes if it's a phone call, you know, hey,
Mhm.
so, yeah, I'll see what we can do with that then. And then lastly, the audit report will be published by next Thursday. And council received a copy of the exit conference information as well as the finding that will be published as well. And I just, again, want to clarify that it's a reporting error, and it's an over-reporting error that we did on our schedule of expenditures of federal awards, the CFA. And what the gist of it is, we reported all of the funds that were spent, and we did not take out any matching funds. And to the tune, I think it was like $350 some odd thousand that were over-reported. And so in there, it talks about the steps that we're taking to correct those matters. Not only will we're going to be in essence creating a spreadsheet to make sure that we capture all of the grants that we have as well as the terms and the match. And then we'll attend any trainings that they have on federal reporting requirements. And then we were in the process of creating it ahead of the audit, but basically a project intake sheet or a project form that talks about intents and affidavits, what are the payment terms, what is the dollar amount, how many amendments there are, when did it go out to RFP, all of those requirements that are that we have to follow for public works projects. And we'll just include this grant and reporting requirements in it as well. And like I said, kind of put it on a master spreadsheet too. So we're taking steps to correct that error, which it's a finding because of the dollar amount. And it's not because we misused funds. It's not because we misspent them or misaccounted for them. Just reporting.
Okay, got it.
And if you have any questions on that, let me know. And then we'll publish that on the website as well when it's up.
I did attend that, and thank you for all your work and everybody else's work on that, because I've gone through those audits at the sheriff's office side of things, and so I know the work that it takes in order to provide the information for them. And the more transparent we are with what we're doing, the easier it is. And just thank you for all your hard work, because I know it takes a lot of time to go through an audit. So thank you.
I think this one started June 28th.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Right. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
Robert, motion to approve the vouchers is presented.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Pay the bills. All right, mayor and council reports. Anybody have anything for the greater good?
Lady Bulldogs were victorious last night against South Bend in our game 2, and we have 3 8th graders that start on our varsity girls soccer.
Wow.
And I could hear the game from my house.
It was a great game. We scored in the last 2 minutes to tie the game, and then went into penalty kicks, and we won in the 6th kick. Actually went through the first 5 tied. This is the youngest team. We have only one senior.
Good job.
So the community was out in support. We played White Salmon on Monday. Unfortunately, lost 2-0, but we will be traveling there for their home turf to play them, their home pitch to play them tomorrow night. Off to a good start.
Fantastic.
Well, thanks for doing that too.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is cool.
Ton of fun. Ton
That
of fun.
was cool.
Kids are fun.
So I'm part of the Main Street Board, the Stevenson Downtown Association. One of the funding sources that is unique to Washington is the legislature has made available, they keep increasing the amount of funding. It was 1.25 million. And then it went up to, it was doubled to 2.5. And then through some lobbying just lobbying, that amount has been doubled to $5 million.
Wow.
The way the program works is that if you pay B&O tax or public utility tax, and then there's some formulas to make sure that you're not over donating. But for example, if you donate $1,000 to an accredited Washington Main Street program, $750 of that is applied to your B&O tax as a credit.
Oh,
Wow.
So that's deducted from your obligation for B&O tax, and that money stays here in Stevenson. The remaining $250 is a direct donation to the Downtown Association, but it's tax deductible. So it's a great way to keep money here local instead of to be for local programs. And as you've seen in the past, and Kelly will go over, our director, what those monies have been used for. Specifically, the ones that were really working out great for the downtown is our Bricks and Clicks program. So $1,000, up to $1,000 grant to improve the facade of your building or your digital presence. So instead of waiting until next year to make the additional $2.5 million available, it's been made available this year. The caveat is that it's available August 1st or October 1st, and you have to write those checks by November 15th. So it's a quick turnaround, but there's a lot of businesses that would say, man, I didn't donate enough. So that's a program that we're working on right now, being very organized. Kelly's been great in keeping us focused. So we have a couple of different events coming up in the next couple of weeks to help businesses understand the program and then also donate to the program. So yeah, and it's making great things happen. So for example, Rock Creek Tavern applied for a Bricks and Clicks program and they were approved. So they were able to, it was part of their opening to get a facade improvement.
They have opened? I didn't think they.
Not yet.
Yeah, okay. It's 5440.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. 5440 is nice. So that's my update.
I have an update for Community Fresh. Some of you may not know what that is, but it's a concept to bring into Stevenson, but for all of Squamish County and surrounding areas, to create a culinary training school and a job training school in coordination with WAGAP, WorkSource, the Employment Department, and the school district, Squamish Lodge, a couple of other partners. And we just finished our feasibility study with WSU. And so they're wrapping that up and they hope to have it in my hands in the next 3 weeks. And with that, then we can start seeking funding to bring it to an actual brick and mortar concept. Cool. Not concept, brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Take it from concept to brick and mortar. So we're excited about that.
That's awesome. Cool.
All right. Issues for the next meeting. What do you guys want to see on the agenda?
Nothing out of the ordinance.
All right. We do have an executive session scheduled tonight.
No, I'm not answering my phone next time.
Thank you for picking it up.
How long do you need, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, how long do you-
So we will be going to an executive session for under RCW 42.30.1101B to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate. We will be meeting for 10 minutes. So
10 minutes.
10 minutes, that puts us, we are at 8:45, 8:47, 8:47. Yeah, starting now.
Bye-bye.
Okay, wait, give me a minute.
I need to get a mask. I was like, ow, this really hurts. Ow. Snap right off.
Don't start yet. Share my screen. Share my screen.
All audio off.
Video.
Yeah, I'm done. Make it stop.
Hey, Robert, I want to talk to you.
God, these things are so uncomfortable.
Okay.
Is my head bigger than most? I don't understand. How it
Yes.
just drags into my ears like this.
Beard is.
Yeah.
It's not a beard. And this is actually a slimmed down version of the beard.
Gotta get slimmer.
Okay, here we go.
All right, I'd like to reopen the meeting as right on time, as it turns out. 8:58.
So decision made, council directed.
Staff is directed to proceed as discussed. And I would like to, I will take it on myself to adjourn the meeting.
All right.